We're going to just move on the subject now because we've got the former Labour MP, who's now an independent for Households, John Mann, joining us. John Mann, morning.
Good morning.
Well, you know Diane Abbott better than any of us, the MP for Hackney North and Stoke Newington. Is she guilty just of anti-Semitism? And if so, should she be kicked out of the party altogether?
Well, that's up to the disciplinary processes.
What's your view?
My view is that the Labour Party needed to have an independent disciplinary setup that was robust, and they've got that. And we argued that very strongly. That's what the Equality Human Rights Commission intervention was all about. So they'll decide what should happen to her. I can't see her standing at the next election now. My reaction is almost a sadness at the absurdity of what she said. Don't forget, she represents the most recognisable Jewish community, the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community. Quite a lot of them in Stamford Hill are her constituents and have been for the 37 years she's been in Parliament. And they face racism every day. Hassle on the streets, abuse, most of it low level, but nevertheless, that's very demeaning and damaging, sometimes worse, sometimes violent attacks. And that's in her own patch. So I'm a little bewildered, actually, at how extraordinary her comments are. She's always been very much on the hard left, so kind of general political views never surprised me. I've never really agreed with her on them. But that's politics. This is something rather different. And, she's received herself, I would say, more abuse than anybody else, racist abuse in politics over the years. Some nasty stuff, including some in the Labour Party. And for her to come out with this it's somewhat bewildering, to be honest. It's so bad. And I think probably a graceful retirement would now be the appropriate thing.
And how insulting for a Jewish person who's been a victim of anti-Semitism that she says, oh, well, that's no worse than somebody being abusive about someone with ginger hair. It's extraordinary. Has she never read the history of the Holocaust?
Well, but also, she must talk to her own constituents. A majority of Jewish children spent their entire lives subjugated to Nazi oppression and then murder, as, by the way, did a majority of the Roma children of the time. Exactly the same thing. She's also managed to label them, and that was their life until they were murdered. An actual majority of both communities in Europe. It's baffling, and even more so that today, almost certainly, literally today, there will be a young Hasidic Jewish person in her constituency who receives some negativity, some abuse, hopefully nothing worse than that, hopefully nothing violent, but there will be something negative directed against her own constituents for being Jewish, for looking Jewish today. That will happen today. That's what's really astonishing about this. She knows that situation, and I have no idea what's going on in her head.
John, we're not quite in electioneering period yet, but we're sort of getting close to it. We had the Dominic Raab situation, bullying and resignation last week. At this period in time, it's incredibly important, isn't it, for the leader of the political parties to handle these situations in a way that they think is going to reflect well with the electorate. What do you think Keir Starmer should do now?
Well, he seems to have moved pretty quickly on this, appropriately. And I would imagine he's going to see this through. He must be bewildered at the crassness of the remarks. And people say stupid things. People say extreme things, and that can embarrass political parties, and does. But this is beyond the pale in terms of how absurd, how almost contradictory this is. And I think he's just going to see this through, and I don't think she will stand as a candidate, certainly not as a Labour candidate at the general election.
All right, that's John Mann, Lord Mann.